Hello everyone. I wanted to bring a story to you about a pastor that was stabbed out of Miami-Dade area of Florida, out of Opa-locka. And so before we get into this story, please go ahead and give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are not a subscriber, so you will get all of the notifications. And see, this is a story where, when you are a servant of the Lord and you have a heart of a servant, being a faith leader and being joy filled, where the world didn't give you the joy and the world can't take it away. And so here is a pastor, young, 41 years of age. His name is Antwane Lenoir, but he was known as Pastor AD by the Miami-Dade community. And he was found at a Westview Baptist Church in the Florida city of Opa-locka on Saturday evening with wounds to his neck, and he was pronounced deceased at the scene. When the police arrived, they responded to a call about a stabbing at a church around 5:30 p.m. on Saturday. Now, the suspect has been arrested in the death of this popular Florida pastor. He has been arrested. Now, the thing is that, when you are servant of the Lord, you want to help people. You want to provide meals and food and drink, and you want to even provide shelter if there's a possibility of that. And so we are seeing that a lot of churches, are reaching out and being a part of the community to help in the community. But we're also seeing the other side of that, where individuals are taking advantage of the aid and the help that's being provided. And we're seeing that more and more, that you have individuals that are coming to the church and committing crimes or murders, and even manipulating people. Just the story I covered a couple of weeks ago with the pastor, a fake pastor pretending to be a pastor and had 10 wives. And even when he was caught the first time, he did not stop and married someone else. He is a bigamist serving prison time, rightfully so. Then you have this fake priest going by Father Martin, and he was going around the United States robbing churches, using deceptive practices and stealing from churches, and the list is long. And so you have people taking advantage, individuals taking advantage of churches and church members and the congregation. And so now it's going to come down to having to be very, very careful, spiritual discernment, but just really careful of who you allow into your presence, who you allow into the church under the false pretenses of them wanting to receive aid, when in fact they're there for other ulterior motives. Now, getting back to this story, the following day, police tracked down 44-year-old James Dawkins and arrested him on a charge of first-degree murder in relation to the killing. According to the arrest report, Dawkins had been allowed to live at the church temporarily, but Lenoir had recently contacted a locksmith to change several locks on the property. So there obviously must have been something going on that prompted this situation, the changing of the locks, and maybe even the congregation started to feel unsafe, because if you have women in the church that have to show up for something and they're having prayer, or they're there for some situation, mothers in the church, deaconess, and if there's not a male deacon or male figure in the church, then that can become problematic. And maybe there was things coming up missing. There could have been just some type of suspicion overall, some type of feeling of darkness overall that prompted this, prompted the decision to have the locks changed. Now, also, Mr. Dawkins, he was only allowed to live there temporarily, and maybe he was communicated to, that was communicated to him that this was only a short temporarily situation for him, a short stay temporarily, and he did not like the idea that his time was up. And he lacked gratitude. He didn't say, thank you for allowing me to stay here temporarily. I truly appreciate it. No, he got angry. And I want to know how many of you have helped someone and then their time was up and, to move on, and they got angry with you and wanted to harm you, or they want to destroy your property, damage something, they came back to steal something from you, or they stole in the process, and you discovered it after the fact. So things do happen, but people, show a lack of gratitude. When you've rendered aid to them, you've tried to help them, you have helped them, and they get angry. And this sounds like a case of, allegedly that he was angry that his time was up. And so when it came to changing the locks, it was probably more than likely to have the locks changed so that there wouldn't be any problems with him using, a key to get in after he was told that his time was up. And anyone can go and make keys, duplicate keys. So it is appropriate to have locks changed. And that is very important. So back to the story, Dawkins and Lenoir allegedly had an argument when the locksmith arrived at the church. And he probably was like, what are you doing? You trying to put me out? He might have had some words like that, but he really was a coward. And he also was selfish, and he did not appreciate the gratitude that was, of aid that was extended to him. He didn't appreciate that help that was extended to him. And so he took matters, he let his emotions get in the way. All of a sudden, it was, this, like this, just from, a thin line, of love and hate. There was a thin line there, and he took the stance of hate and evil to unalive this popular Florida pastor. And so police allege Dawkins then stabbed Lenoir multiple times without any provocation before running from the scene. So he was a coward. And so once found and questioned, police described Dawkins' statement to authorities as self-serving, because obviously he felt, he was self-serving. This is a church. He probably was talking like that it's a church. They had no right to put me out of the church. He probably self-serving, and this is God's house. He probably was saying a lot of things that were self-serving. And not one time in that conversation that he probably said, I want to thank them for, allowing me to stay temporarily. I got my emotions in it. I was back on the street. I didn't want to be homeless. He just didn't think of any of those things. It was all about himself, self-serving. And also, it wasn't what he was saying consistent with the evidence obtained throughout the course of the investigation. And so Dawkins is represented by a public defender, of course, more than likely. And then he appeared in court for the first time on Monday to enter a plea of not guilty. And so he is being held, and some of you, if you live in Miami-Dade area or you've lived there before, you probably are familiar with the Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center. Now he is being held without bond at the Miami-Dade Correction Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center. That is a mouthful, but he should not get bond. He needs to stay behind bars. Okay. Now, his wife, condolences to this family, to her children, the loved ones, the community. She said he was a very good example of a selfless individual. Her husband, Pastor Antwane Lenoir, known as AD in the Miami-Dade community of Opa-locka. She said that her husband had been a pastor at the church for 15 years and had become a beloved leader in the community. So he looks very young in this picture. He's 41 years of age. And he more than likely entered the ministry when he was young. If he's been a pastor for 15 years at this church, then he entered the ministry at a young age. He leaves behind the 4 children, ages 13 and 20. And so these children are now, fatherless. They don't have an earthly father anymore, but they have a heavenly father. And so, again, condolences to the wife and her children, and even this community and the congregation of his church. And his wife goes on to say, again, he was a very good example of a selfless individual, a joy-filled person. He always smiled, even if things were looking kind of grim or dreary. He wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it by his countenance, because the world didn't give the joy to him, and the world can't take it away. We've talked about that in many Bible study lessons and devotions, that you have joy that is filled from the Lord. The Lord gives you that joy. The world can't take it from you, and they didn't give it to you. And even in spite of, things that might have been looking grim or dreary, he didn't allow that to determine his circumstances of joy. You see what I'm saying? Because the world didn't give it to him, and the world can't take it away. And I stand on that we should not allow our circumstances to determine our joy for the Lord. And so I can relate to what his wife, Mrs. Lenoir, is saying, that he was a joy-filled person, and he did not, you couldn't tell it. So that's saying to me that he did not allow the circumstances to determine his joy. Now, Opa-locka Mayor John H. Taylor II made a post honoring the late religious leader on Sunday, saying in part, "The city of Opa-locka grieves the loss of a noble man and friend. We were blessed to have this great man as a part of our community, serving in many capacities to ensure that our residents had a voice." Similar messages flooded Facebook from Florida officials and community members alike, calling him a devoted family man, pillar of our community, and a force for so much good. His wisdom, kindness, and unwavering faith touched the lives of so many, mine included, said one parishioner's post. Pastor Lenoir's contributions will be remembered with great respect and gratitude. May his spirit continue to inspire us all, said another by City of North Miami Mayor Alex Delsomi. His life is not when it ended. It's not even about when it started, his wife told CBS Miami. It's about what he did in between to make his life count. So again, condolences to this wife, this family, his children, the community, the congregation, and all others that knew him. He touched people's lives in such a noble way, and he was spirit-filled. And this is a loss for the Christian community. There is a loss. And so again, we have to be ever so careful when we help people, being careful and mindful of who they are. And I'm not saying that this pastor was not, because we all, if we've been in the ministry and in any capacity in a church, helping others in the community, even myself, helping in the community from, such a long time ago, starting out in helping in the ministry, outreach and all types of things, and sharing my story about some man trying to push me in front of a trolley because he said, if God is so good and can do these things, and a deacon moved me out the way and stepped forward, and said, man, stop that. And so we see that, we are in the helping field as servants of the Lord, and we want to do, the will of the Lord, and helping the community and extending, aid and grace and, and mercy and, and things to the community. And this is the thanks that, some of us receive, or some of the people receive. Some of it is, less severe than others. But this is what this pastor received from someone that him and his congregation, as shepherd over the congregation of Westview Church, he received this instead of gratitude. And we see so much of this going around with individuals taking advantage of churches and members in the church because they believe that, well, this is the church, they're going to help me. But then they're not really genuine in their purpose for being there, especially if they are turning out to commit offenses, like this, such as this. And we are in a spiritual warfare. When you really think of it, we're in a spiritual warfare. But we can't grow weary. That's another thing in doing good. But how do we protect ourselves, while we're out doing good, while we're extending, a helping hand, while we're doing the Lord's work? How do we not grow weary, and how do we continue to do good, in the midst of all of this that's going on? We refresh our hope daily. We continue in our faith walk, and we continue to pray for the protection of our congregation, the pastor, his family, loved ones, the community. We bind together, and continue to be that beacon of hope and light. But again, the question remains, how do we, continue to move forward when tragedies and incidents like this happen? And so praying again for this family, because it's going to be some grief. It's going to be, lots of tears. But then we thank the Lord that we have pastors like this that are selfless, because we hear a lot of pastors that are falling down. We hear pastors are doing a lot of things wrong and stealing money and pretending to be something that they're not, and not really being, the God-filled, person that they've been called. Some of them are self-called, there's many that are called, but few are chosen. And some of them are putting titles on themselves with lack of ordination, lack of training, and things like that. So for this pastor to be remembered in such a noble way, speaks volumes that he was doing the work that God had called him to. He was actually doing that work. And so, it is a loss to this community, but we want to honor his life and not place blame anywhere, but honor his life. But yes, we do have to be careful. But how do we go about not judging when we embark upon, someone or others that, that show up to the church door? Like last summer, this young man, he came to our church, and I was the only one there at the time. And it was when we had moved into this building and we were getting it all together, the painting and stuff. And I just happened to hear something, and something in my spirit didn't feel right. And I turned around and went to the front of the church, because I was in the back in one of the rooms, and I heard something, and my spirit, something came over me, and I turned around and walked to the front of the church, and there was this gentleman standing there, and I'll say gentleman, standing there. And I said, "May I help you?" And he said, "Well, I just want to get some water. Do you have any water?" And I said, "Sure." But you know what? I felt that if I hadn't heard anything and hadn't came to the front, just something told me, something in my spirit. Because when I got there, I noticed that he was standing there for some time. And he didn't acknowledge him, like make any noise. Like he didn't say, "Hey, is anyone here? Hello." He didn't say any of that. He just came into the door quietly and was standing there looking around. And it was some papers on the table, because we have like a table in our foyer, and he was just standing there. But he didn't say, "Hello, is anyone here? Hi, can I get some water?" Nothing. But thank God that God that whatever it was, that spirit or discernment, thanking the Lord that he, that I, it was just something about it, like I said. And I turned around and walked to the front of the church to encounter him standing there. And he wasn't, he was standing there like he was looking for something to take. And then he tried to tell me that, I think something about the pastor helped him or gave him something. So when the pastor returned, I told him what happened. And he said, yeah, he was up to no good. He said, I think I remember who he was. He said, but yeah, he was up to no good. And I said, and I sensed that he was up to no good. And God protected me. I'm going to say God truly protected me, because it wasn't me. It was the Lord that protected me. And that's the thing, and it could have been in this situation where, the congregation start to feel unsafe. They start to feel something. And when you start to feel something is not right, you have to take action. You have to stop at those red flags and not run the red flags. Don't bypass red flags. Don't run them. Stop at them and analyze and evaluate the situation. And that's what I did. I evaluated. Even then, I didn't really hear anything, but I evaluated the situation. But I know that I'm thankful that, he didn't try to attack me, because as I approached him, he was looking at me. But it just was something about him that didn't make me feel comfortable. And I'm just being honest about it. And so I'm just saying that when we out here doing the work of the Lord and we want to help people, especially in a case where he was allowed to live temporarily in the church, and he probably was told that, but he didn't want to, abide by that. And so, it led to what happened with this selfless pastor who gave his time, more than likely resources from the church, his family, and helping others, and even having still that joy-filled spirit. So let's stay in prayer for the churches that are really doing the work. Let's stay in prayer for all of the churches that are truly doing the work of the Lord. And there's a lot of churches out here that are feeding the homeless, that are giving out things to help the community, are being involved, establishing, connections with, community leaders, and things like that. So let's stay prayerful for these churches, because there are still churches out here that are truly servants of the Lord and doing the work. And it's up to us as leaders to make sure that we are following the word of God and being that beacon of hope and light to others in the community, so that people will be drawn back to the church, as in this case right here. People knew him and he was well liked, but he was a person that was doing the work. And we know that not all churches are operating in that manner, and that not all pastors are operating in that manner. But God didn't give up hope on you, so why would you give up hope on the church that was established by the Lord? You had the universal church, and then out of the universal church birth was the smaller churches. God hasn't given up on you, so don't give up on the church. Don't give up. And we should put our trust in God, not in man. We should follow God, not man. Following the word of God and not man. And when we can do those things and coming back together, then, it would be a better place for us. But it starts in the community, within ourselves. And we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing, as in our community to help things be better? And that's so important too, is to not point fingers, but to point it inward and ask ourselves and examine ourselves. But being ever so careful, not growing weary in doing good, but asking the Lord for wisdom, for knowledge, and spiritual discernment to get us through, because we know we are in times such as this, where there's a lot going on, and we are seeing that there are individuals out here taking advantage of churches, of pastors, of congregations, and we have to be ever so careful. And again, my condolences goes out to this family, May God give them the resources that they need to continue to move forward. May you cover this wife and the children that were birthed out of this family. May you give them everything they need, that they will not go without. And in the times of, discomfort, that God will wrap his loving, kind arms around his wife, his widow, and his children, and continue that they will continue to come together as a community, uh, you know, and hopefully that this is something that a learning lesson for them as well, as far as what has transpired, and then also to pray for the church that they will get the next pastor that comes in will be a beacon of hope and light as well to the community, and not someone that will take advantage of what transpired and the vulnerability of the members, but that will be someone that will come in and continue to do God's work as this pastor did. So with that being said, you all, please leave your respectful comments below. And I thank you all for tuning in. God bless you.